In this video, we're going to show you how to install a power steering pressure line on your Hummer H3 located underneath the front side of your vehicle. On the front of your airbox, you're going to locate this hose right here. Now the two textured parts of this little clamp here, what you want to do is grab those two and pinch them. And when you pinch them, you're going to pull the hose off of the airbox, like so. Let's move to the sensor right here. There's a little tab on the top. You're going to pinch and pull up. Let's go ahead and disconnect our air intake tube here. Using a flathead screwdriver, I'm going to go ahead and loosen up our worm clamp here on the intake tube. Now we're not going to undo it completely, you just want to loosen it up. Now around the perimeter of the lid here, you're going to go ahead and locate the little snap clips. Just going to push those off. With those undone, I'm going to lift up and slide the lid towards the driver's side. You're going to disconnect the three tabs. Now our airbox base has 2 bolts and 1 nut that we need to remove. On the front side here, I'm going to use a 13mm socket with extension. I'm going to loosen that. Going to reach down and pull that out. It feels like whatever it threads into is spinning. There it is. It's right in front of our coolant expansion tank. Reach down and pull that out. Now that's loose. It's going to come out with our airbox as we lift that up, so we can leave that in there. The third and last one is normally down inside here. Right down inside here is normally a nut, but there's a stud there. Ours is missing, so we can see that that's loose. Now we're going to go ahead and pull up our airbox, pop off our intake tube here. Good, lift this up and out. Now we're going to go ahead and come over here to our power steering reservoir. I'm going to go ahead and spray this down and clean this up. I just want to get any debris away from this before I open this up. Okay, go ahead and open this up, twist it counterclockwise, remove that and set that aside. Now we have an empty reservoir right here, an old bottle. I want to make sure it's not going to fall over. Now what we're going to do is we're going to evacuate the fluid, the power steering fluid that is in here as much as possible, because we are going to be disconnecting the line from the bottom of the pump itself. So you can use a turkey baster, you can use a suction tool such as this here. All right, at this point here, we've gotten out as much as we can this way. Let's go ahead and remove our container and put that someplace else where it won't spill. Now the high pressure line that we're going to be going for is right here. It's right behind the power steering pump pulley, and it's this one right here. It's a 16mm nut here. We're going to put our opening a wrench on that, and we're going to push it. We're going to push it back towards the cab of the vehicle. Now we are going to lose fluid from this here. We did pull out as much as we could from the reservoir. However, we still have fluid in the pump and there's still fluid in the reservoir itself. So we do have a catch can underneath. And push this off. Remove the front skid plate here. This is 4 13mm bolts. We're gonna hit the 2 front ones first. Loosen and remove these. And if we move to the back side, there are 2 here. We're simply going to loosen these, don't remove them. Move the skid plate back. So up underneath the front here, now right here is your oil pan. Just up top here is your serpentine belt and your harmonic balancer. We're gonna follow down. We have multiple lines right here, but this is the one we're gonna be replacing. It is the rearward hose here. And if you follow it around, it comes around to this clamp right here. Now there's a 10mm bolt. We're going to use a 1/4 inch ratchet and a standard size 10mm. And we're going to loosen and remove the bolts here. Now there's 2 of these here. This is on the passenger side. We need to loosen and remove both of these in order to get this line out. Now, there's not a ton of room in here. Now the bolt we just removed is further down this way here. We're over on the driver's side. If you follow the hose over, here is the other bolt right here. We're going to use a deep 10mm. Okay. Now that we got our 2 outer bolts removed, there is one dead center right here. So there's a total of 3. I'm going to use my deep socket here just to break that. Now I did go ahead and switch over to a shallow socket here due to clearance issues. If you continue to run the deep socket, it's gonna interfere with the oil pan and then you're gonna be stuck and you're probably gonna lose your ratchet. But yeah, you wanna go ahead and do that. Switch over to that shallow socket. All right, let's see what we have for mobility here. Okay, we have all 3 of our bolts loose. Now we want to go ahead and get to this 10mm bolt right here, and it holds both of these lines in place. So we're going to use an extension, a swivel, a ratchet. You want to go ahead and get to that. Now we do have a catch can underneath on the ground there to go ahead and catch any power steering fluid that's probably going to run out of these lines. Okay, to remove that bolt. I was grabbing these lines, I'm wiggling these back and forth. These are held in with rubber O-rings. Here we go. With those two lines pulled out, we're going to lift up on all of these pieces here that we previously unbolted. Now on the factory hose here, this line is supposed to pop out, but the notch is too tight to pull this out. It's almost like this was crimped from the factory to hold that in place. So you have a couple different options. You can try and bend out this end tab here, which we're gonna try. If that doesn't work, we'll simply take our air tool, our cutting tool, and just cut this here, weaken it, and pop that off. We just need to keep and salvage this line here. There's no way that's gonna bend, so we're gonna simply resort to taking our cutting tool and putting a slit here and weaken that up. There we go. Now we will be salvaging this line. So if you want to, and it's highly recommended, go ahead and take a bristle brush. Go ahead and clean that up. I'm going to use a bristle brush here and clean off our working surface right here. Now there are two little tabs, one here and one on the other side, that are bent over to put this clamp together. So whatever you have for a tool, there's no real specific tool. I'm going to use a pair of cutters here to basically just kind of get in and grab that tab and start to bend it out. Seems to be working okay. That's what all we want to do right there, is bend out that little tab on both sides. And now we can open this up. Slide that bracket off. Now the block itself is split, so we can go ahead and pop out the line that we're going to be replacing. Now we get to do that a second time, a little bit further back over the cross member here. Let's go ahead and get to that one. Next thing we want to do is go ahead and remove our oil drain tray right here for our oil filter. And there's two plastic push pins, and it's a two-piece pin. So I'm going to use my trim tool here and put that in and push it underneath the head of the first one. Pop that up and out. Let's go ahead and get that second one a little bit further back here. Go ahead and lift that up and out. You know, with that oil drain tray out of the way, we can now go ahead and manipulate this hose system right up and out of the way, giving us better access there to that little tab. Go ahead and clean that off and use whatever you have for a tool to go ahead and bend this tab over on the bottom. Work the clamp off. And proceed to separating. So now we're just going to work this line down underneath the oil filter, around it. And there we have it. If your clip here is still salvageable, you can go ahead and just simply pop that off. and swap it over to the new line if you want to. Now on the hose end here that threads into the power steering pump unit itself, I'm going to go ahead and install the O-ring on the end. So I take the supplied O-ring and simply roll that over the edge. Now before we install this onto the pump itself, we will take a little bit of power steering fluid and coat that O-ring seal, and then we'll go ahead and thread that on. But before we even get there, let's go ahead and protect the end of this tube. I'm going to take a piece of tape, simple like painter's tape or something like that, and I'm simply going to put it on like so. And the purpose of this here is I want to protect the end of this here. I don't want debris to fall inside this line while I feed this back up towards the pump. So let's go ahead and install this. You'll have to guide that line up until it fits up there. Here we go. Now at this point here, we have our line fed up. We need to thread into the bottom right here. I'm going to go ahead and peel off the tape here that we use to protect that. I'm going to take a little dab of power steering fluid that we have in our power steering fluid cap right now. Just put some on that O-ring. Now we need to bring this up, fit this in. And basically, we just need to get that nut started. And it's probably going to be a two-hand job here, possibly. I might have to hold that hose around the back side while we thread that in. Now, the purpose of this here is basically, this is going to set us up for our positioning down below. Now, I'm not tightening this here. I'm just getting it started, several threads, making sure that it is secure. And wiggling this hose around to make sure we have that started. Let's go ahead and move back underneath and start routing that line. On the connector end here, we're going to go ahead and install our O-ring. Before we push this into the steering rack, we want to go ahead and put some power steering fluid around that O-ring. Now we want to go ahead and position our lines. And we're going to basically reverse our procedure. Get the rubber insulators on, and then get your clamps on. Now, I'm not going to secure this one yet. Let's go ahead and get our other clamp into position. Now, for any reason, if your brackets are rusted, rotted, or they're deformed, you can always go ahead and try and replace these. The other option you can do is you can probably use an alternate type of worm clamp on something like this here. The only downside is that you won't be able to secure it down to the frame. However, if these are secured to this other line, then you're going to be able to secure this entire system by installing just a single 10mm bolt in the back. Now, here is what it may look like if you do use a worm clamp. What I do is I literally took the bushing off here, and I was able to use some pliers and just literally form the clamp around it, and that is securing these two together. Now I'm going to tighten this up in the end just a little bit more to secure the two, yet keep them insulated away from each other. And you can also do that to the other one as well. We're going to go ahead and put these two together and get these installed on the steering rack. I'm going to go ahead and position our line up and in, like so. We did apply some power steering fluid to both of the O-rings on there. Let's go ahead and push this up and into place. And once you could get your hoses lined up and into the rack itself, it's just so tight in here to try and wiggle those in. Sometimes you can use a flathead screwdriver or a pry bar and just gently tap these in. You're gonna be putting your tool right on the flange and just gently tap these in evenly. And there's an audible difference once they're bottomed out. And there it is. Next step is go ahead and get that 10mm bolt started. Once that's started, we're going to go ahead and snug that down. Get our ratchet in there. All right, once that bolt bottoms out, give it a little bit more. You do want to snug it, but don't over tighten it because you're just going into aluminum onto the steering rack. You don't want that to crack. Now, if you have the ability to do so, you want to go ahead and torque this down to 106 inch-pounds or 8.8 foot-pounds. Now we just need to position our bolt here, get that in. All right, go ahead and snug that bolt down. You can see on the back side here, we went ahead and we chose to do the hose clamp, the worm clamp itself, and we just oval that out. That is securing our hoses. It's insulated, keeping them separated. So we do the same thing here as we did with the forward one. So by securing this here, it secures all of our hoses. And we're going to feed our oil tray up into place. Push that base in. Push that center button down. We do the same for the back one here. You just have to position that. And then snap that button down, and we're all set there. Now our new line fitting here is actually a 17mm, where the original one was a 16. Let me make sure that is good and tight. Now that we have this line secured, we can now go ahead and fill up our pump and reservoir. Go ahead and put a clean funnel in there and use the appropriate power steering fluid for this model vehicle. And what we're doing is just, we can hear air bubbles coming up. And at any given time, you can go ahead and use your cap here, which has a dipstick on there. Now it's going to give you a reading on this here. It's in a crosshatch area. I'll go ahead and install that and bring it back up. So now that we have our fluid in the crosshatch area, go ahead and secure that. Now when we removed our airbox here, we pull out the bolt with the metal sleeve. You can go ahead and just push that back in. Sometimes they come out with the sleeve. So we're just going to press that into place. We're going to go ahead and line up our airbox now. We need to work the hole into the fender. Go ahead and get our bolts started. Now we went ahead and sourced a replacement nut. We're going to go ahead and install that down there now. With all of our hardware installed, let's go ahead and tighten everything down. Snug that down gently. Once that's bottomed out, you can stop and then repeat for the back one. Now installing the lid here, there's going to be 3 tabs on the back side. Those insert into the lid. There it is. And then go ahead, snap your clips on. Now on the front side of the airbox, we have the air injection hose here. All you have to do is line it up and push it on. You're going to hear and feel it snap into place. The next thing we're going to do is go to the connector for the mass airflow sensor right here. Line that up, push that on. You're going to feel it and hear it snap into place. And then we're going to go ahead and secure our worm clamp here, or hose clamp. Once it snugs down, give it a little bit more. Put our skid plate up under the bumper and then line up the rear bolts. Slide that up into place. Install the forward bolts. Go ahead and snug these down. And you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.